Hello, today is Saturday, June 6, 2015, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? Well, I want to welcome you to the show, and we have a great show in store for you today, and it is a beautiful day here. A little bit chilly, but hey, we have blue skies and sunshine. Last night, we actually had a lot of flash flooding here where I live. It was crazy. Wicked winds, and the water was just coming down in a slant, and it was crazy, thunder and lightning. It was something. We are fortunate today to have with us Chris DiCesare with us today. First, we're going to take a little glimpse into the missing persons files. The first one we have is a medical missing urgent pregnant mother, Carrie Bradshaw Crowther, age 49, disappeared from Salisbury, North Carolina, home hours before she was scheduled for a cesarean section Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015. Her daughter said she left Carrie home for less than 10 minutes Tuesday morning to get gas, and when she returned, her mother and her champagne-colored 2001 Mazda MPV van, representation is shown in the picture that's on my site, with an expired Kansas tag, were gone. She said the lights were off and the door was unlocked to the house. But her mother's suitcase and clothes, along with her purse, were still in the home, but her wallet and her cell phone were missing. Carrie was spotted Wednesday afternoon at Statesville, North Carolina convenience store. Carrie may be headed to Linville Gorge, a place that is sentimental to her. Carrie was diagnosed with a vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, putting her at risk of rupturing major blood vessels and possibly rupturing her uterus and intestines, making it difficult for her to have a natural childbirth. Preterm cesarean was necessary in Carrie's case. Anyone with information on Carrie's location, please contact the Salisbury Police Department at 704-638-5333 or Crime Stoppers at 1-866-639-5245. or contact your local 911. The next one we have for you is Adam Mills, age 30, was last seen in Milton, Wisconsin, walking east in the 100 block of East Madison Avenue on May 27th, 2015, around 8 a.m. He is described as being 5'8", 170 pounds, has brown graying hair, blue eyes, a goatee, and wearing glasses. He was last seen wearing tennis shoes, blue jeans, and a dark blue t-shirt. He also has a blue gauge style piercing in his top cartridge portion of his left ear. Mills is described by his family as a very quiet and shy type of person. Mills may have been in a tavern in the village of Cambridge, Wisconsin on Saturday, May 30th, but the sighting has not been confirmed. Anyone with information on the location of Adam D. Mills or have seen him since May 27th, please contact the Town of Milton Police Department or the Rocky County Sheriff's Department Dispatch Office at 608-757-2244 or call your local 911. We're going to take a short break now, and when we return, we will have Chris DiCesare with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with Chris DiCesare. Chris' view of life was forever changed by a series of horrifying events in and around his dorm room, C2D1 of Erie Hall. From early February through late April of 1985, he and his college friends would endure what is now called the C2D1 Haunting. Apparitions sighted, strange voices heard, moving objects witnessed, and physical attacks all became part of the ordeal shared by Chris, who quickly became the focal point of this haunting. After years of avoiding the spotlight, in 2009, Chris finally agreed to share his story. Hello, Chris. Welcome to info2rail, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This is a very, very exciting thing that I came across with you that you've experienced. This is something I've actually heard about lots in my life. I've come across this, and it's awesome to be able to have you on here to tell us about it. So can you tell us about how this started for you?
Sure. Well, I was going to college in Geneseo, a state school, and I was a teenager. And going to college for me was a nice opportunity. I wanted to run marathons, but just in case I didn't become a great runner, I went to school to get a degree. My second year of college, things were going very well. And then strange things started to happen. I remember one day in February, I came back from classes and I began to hear someone call my name in a whispering tone, like Chris. And I figured maybe someone was outside my door or outside the window. And I checked both locations and no one was there. And then I heard it again and a third time. So I figured, well, maybe there's someone playing a joke on me, some kind of practical joke. So I got headphones, put them into the stereo, and I played Sammy Hagar, Voice of America, I Can't Drive 55. So I'm listening to this music, and in the headphones, over the music, I hear it again. Chris. So I'm thinking, that's crazy. I dropped the headphones on the ground and I ran out. So I'm trying to think to myself, how could someone know in this joke that I would be listening to headphones? I put it out of my head, said this just end that, and then I went to my classes and went running. When I came back from my track practice, I was going to take a shower in the bathroom, which is right across from our dormitory bedroom. And when I got in the bathroom, for some reason, for the first time in my life, I was too scared to take a shower. And the thought was, if the water goes over my head, I can't see good and I can't hear good. And I thought, why am I scared? I've taken showers every day my whole life, and yet right now I'm afraid of this kind of the shower. I thought maybe it's the voice I heard. So I figured I'd wait for someone to stand near me and just be a guard, so to speak. And a few minutes later, my roommate, his name was Paul, came in the hallway and went into the room. Before I didn't say anything, he began to scream. He began to scream, and I'm going to do the PG version. Oh, shoot! Oh, shoot! And he came running in the bathroom, out of breath. Just his eyes were wild. And I said to him, what happened? And he jumped. I was there, and he said, you won't believe me. You won't believe what just happened. I don't want to say anything. So I told him, I'll tell you what, then. You just stand here. I'll take my shower. We'll get done. We'll go talk. We went back to the room about 10 minutes later, and I asked him again, what happened? He said, well, I came into the room, and I heard somebody right next to my head, and no one was there. Somebody call your name. And at that point in time, I realized it wasn't something internal. Rather, it's definitely something external going on, but I didn't know what it could be. I mean, if not a joke, then maybe there's a gas leak. Perhaps there's mass hysteria. Maybe someone had put drugs in her food. I didn't know. All I knew is that I was afraid of this getting worse than it was, so I didn't invest in it. We went to dinner. We came back, and that night at his desk, he began to yell at me, saying, stop, cut it out. And so I asked him, what am I doing? He said, you're blocking my light. And when he turned around, he realized I was 12 feet from him. I couldn't be doing that. And he said, well, what's going on? I said, I don't know, Paul. Nothing's happening. I don't know what's blocking your light. So he decided I'm going to leave, and he left the room. And there I was by myself, and at that moment in time, I'm eating these little hot tamale candies. I can see someone standing behind me, which is impossible because I'm facing the door. I'm on the second floor of a building. It's February in Western New York. It's freezing cold. The window's closed. That's impossible. So I begin to count to 10. My hope was I count to 10, I'll turn, it'll be gone. Well, I got to 7. I turned my head, and there it was, this person standing there with his head tilted as his neck was broken, a blue and gold type shirt, blue pants. But the worst part was his legs were going straight through the stereo. And that's when I realized, this is going to be bad.
That is awesome. For somebody like me who's into this stuff, that to me would be great.
I was scared because my dad was a science teacher, and we were taught that you have to empirically sense something either through sight, through sound, through touch. And so he would say to me, "Look, you can take a telescope, you can see Saturn, you can see Neptune, you can get a microscope and you can see paramecium and microbes, but guess what? You really can't see a ghost." So growing up, there were two ghosts. There was Casper on TV, the friendly ghost, and then Jesus, the Holy Ghost, and that was about it. Nothing in between. So to see this thing standing there in my room, it really made me think, oh my gosh, what else that I think is true isn't, and how much don't I know? And it kind of messed me up as a teenager, thinking, oh my gosh, I could be in trouble here.
So how violent did this thing end up getting with you?
Initially, it wasn't violent at all. It was just creepy. It would watch me sleep. It would put its hands on my neck. It rub my feet. It would call my name, open picture frames, make the clocks flash, throw books across the room. Nothing that's inherently violent, just freaky. However, after a few weeks of that, I had a hard time sleeping, and I got nervous. I didn't feel safe, and so my roommate and I decided to go to see a priest uptown in Geneseo at St. Mary's Church to see if maybe the priest could put a stop to this haunting. Our friend Jeff next door, he had a different point of view. He was intrigued by it. And he thought, well, gee, if there's a ghost in there and it keeps talking to you, imagine what you could find out from it. Maybe it could tell you about, is there a heaven or a hell, or about religion, or about, who it was. And he was fascinated. But for Paul and I in the room all the time, not sleeping and, faring very poorly, we didn't want that to happen. So we went to see the priest, and they turned us away at the church, but gave us a name, and that was Father Charles Manning at the Interfaith Center. And we talked to him, and he agreed to come down to the dormitory, Erie Hall, like Lake Erie, and bless the room. After the blessing, things were quiet for about 3.5 days. And then I guess the thing was angry for being cast out. It got violent. I came back, it was March 10th, it was a Sunday, and I came back from a long run out towards Leicester area. I think it's Leicester, I forget the name, and I was, of course, back in that dang shower, and I'm taking the shower, and I see a silhouette. I see the head, the tilted neck, and the shoulders above me. But here's the scary part. The light source is there. The lights are on the ceiling, so a shadow goes in the ground. But in this case, I'm seeing shadow on the ceiling, so I'm thinking, that's not right. I'm going to turn the water off, jump back into my room, and be safe. Before I could do that, it felt like I was stabbed in the back. It's like a knife going into my back. I said that because at first it was numb, just a force, but I knew the pain would come. So I turned and I swung. I punched out because I figured if I'm being attacked, I'm going to fight. I'm not going to lay on the ground going, oh no, I'm going to fight. And so I tore the shower curtain down, and I ran into the middle of the bathroom, and I yelled, show yourself, you coward. And then I realized I'll look in the mirror because, I'll see if there's any injury to my back. I looked in the mirror, and what I saw was worse than a knife. I saw 3 long scratches, not all the same length, but 3 scratches from my neck down about to my waist, my hips, and they were bleeding already. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? What now? What do I do? And I remember I looked in the mirror. I thought, that poor guy. I feel so bad for him, but that poor guy was me. And I fell on the ground. My back was stinging. I was just laying there, just on this cold, dirty bathroom floor, just face down, thinking, I can't do this. And I remember I saw 1 drop of water hanging from my wrist, droplet. And in that droplet, I saw the inverted reflection of the floor, refraction. I thought, that's good, that's science. Then the drop fell to the ground. I thought, okay, gravity, check, still science. Then that drop of water made the grout darken between the tiles. I'm like, okay, check. This is science. These things are really happening. What the hell? So, this isn't a nightmare, it's not a dream. I'm really being attacked. And at that point in time, Jeff heard screams. He came running in the bathroom. He put a towel around me. And he pulled me out. And at that point in time, people began to get scared because that's when things started to turn violent.
Did this thing, did you ever find out who or what whatever happened to this spirit to start with?
Well, at the time, I didn't want to know because I wanted to stop. And my thought was if I found out who it was or what happened to it, it might attach itself further to me, and I was scared of that. So I tried on purpose not to talk to it, not to find out, and not to engage, even though it sometimes would still appear. And again, my friend Jeff would counsel against that, saying, "Listen, you've got to engage this thing." And I remember before the priest came, Jeff said to me, "Let's get some pictures. Let's get some proof of this thing before it leaves." And I agreed. Why not? And he had me go in the room, and he wanted me to call the ghost. And so I just started saying, if you're here, I'll talk to you. You keep calling my name, and now's the time to talk to me. My friend wants to see you. And I'll never forget, the closet door began to shake, and I thought, oh no, I didn't want this to really happen. And then you saw the closet door open up, and there's this mist in there. I'm thinking, oh geez. And I said, Jeff, there's the ghost. Take the picture. And as he took the picture, it went right through me. It was like I kind of felt like it froze and unfroze, and I just fell on the ground. And Jeff said to me, where is it? I don't see it. And I could still see the thing in the corner of the room by the ceiling. And so I pointed. He didn't see it. And so I said, well, he said, well, look, if you can see it, you hit the camera, get the picture. And so I took the picture, and that's the picture that became famous of this skeletal image, this white ghost figure by my bed. And so, you know, that's about what I had the knowledge of it, that, it would call my name. It looked kind of like that as we went through the haunting. I didn't necessarily find out who it might have been until 27 years later
Wow.
when Sci-Fi wanted to make a TV show about me and about us. And in those TV shows, they always say, well, you talk, we'll reenact it behind you, and then we'll find out who it was. So who was it? And I said to them, I don't have a clue. What do you mean I have a clue? I listen, I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to know about it. I just tried to get the heck out of there. And so that's the only episode of School Spirits where they don't tell you who it was. But they felt that the proofs and the reactions of people were so strong, they made the show anyway. Well, my mom retired a few years back, and she was doing some genealogy. And she had found that my relatives going back 7 generations had found this young man named Thomas Boyd. We called the ghost Tommy. And they had found him and wrote a letter saying they found his body, and the injuries on his body matched the injuries that I saw on this ghost. And when I did talk to the ghost, and I was brave enough, he said to me he was from Danville. I knew there was a Dansville, New York, not too far from the college. So I figured that's where he came from. But this Thomas Boyd was from Danville, Pennsylvania. So we began to put the piece of the puzzle together, but decades and decades later.
So did this spirit haunt anybody else that was there before you or after you?
It's possible that before I got there that this spirit had been there. And most places have stories like that. Indian burial grounds, a lady in white, things like that, But because I didn't necessarily believe that was possible, I thought they were just jokes, just, campfire tales. My kids go to sleep at night, and so you can have your own nice time with other adults. So there were rumors and talks, but I never really thought about them at all in terms of being serious. So I don't know, but I tried when I was there during the haunting in 1985, to the end of that semester, to stop the haunting, to put a stop to it. I think that I might have, but to tell you the truth, by May 6th of that year, I left the dorm. And I never went back. And so for 25 years, while I'm mowing my lawn and going shopping for food for my kids and living my life, I had no idea that people were talking about this. Going there with K2 meters and with, trying to get ghost boxes and trying to investigate this place where the ghost boy, me, was. And it became like this urban legend, and I had no clue. And so when I went back to the college 25 years later for my alumni, what do you call that, reunion, they said to me, listen, why don't you speak about the events? And I thought, I don't know if I feel good about that. And so I agreed to, and guess what? It was a full house. I couldn't believe that all those years later, people are still talking about this ghost boy, me. So it's amazing how sometimes you don't know the impact that your actions have on people, without you understanding them.
What was the worst thing that this thing ever did to you?
Well, it's interesting because I could say 2 things. The worst thing physically and the worst thing emotionally or mentally. Physically, the worst thing would definitely have been that attack that left me on the bathroom floor. I had those marks, those scratches on my back for about 6 months. And, and they hurt. And I put Band-Aids on them and used peroxide and things. And so I was in physical pain for a while. Then, of course, the itching began when it hurt to heal. So it was a tough time. But I think the emotional pain was worse because it would constantly call me, Chris. And I would say, would say, help me. And there's pain. And it was tough for me because it was like I was walking down this dark road, and there's a big lake there, and some child was drowning in the lake. They were drowning, and they saw me, and I saw them, and they're saying help, but I couldn't swim. And so it was hard for me to take the emotional risk to face this thing and to risk being harmed again in order to maybe help assist it or save it. And when it began to attack my friends and hold them down in beds and grab their legs, and my friends became suicidal, I felt terrible that I might not be handling this the right way, that my friends are suffering. So seeing my friends suffer around me was probably the worst thing it did to me.
So this thing was basically reaching out to you to help it, but if they had already found the body, I'm assuming that it was still, maybe it didn't know it was dead.
Well, they found the body on September, I think, 16th, 1779. So you're talking 206 years later. But my college room was less than 2 miles from the place where the body was found. And I used to go running. I was a distance runner, ran marathons. I used to go running by that location, not knowing it, almost every day. In fact, the day of the attack, March 10th, I just come back from a run right by the location where it had been killed. I just didn't know that until years later. So, and there was desperation. I mean, there was desperation. It would wail and scream and yell. So maybe because he knew I could see him or hear him, he felt it was important to talk to me. But the sad part was, as a teenager, I honestly wasn't ready to understand that. Looking back, it makes more sense to me over the years. At the time, though, honestly, I was terrified, and I wonder, if it happened today, would it be different? And probably it would be.
I've had experiences with not quite anything that violent,
Right.
but for all the research I've done in my life, what I've come up with is a lot of times these these people, they've had such a they were was this guy murdered or did he commit suicide? Do you know that?
Well, I didn't know until recently. Apparently, what happened was he was in General Sullivan's army, and they were supposed to be scouting out the encampments of Native Americans there to see if they can push the Native Americans out west. And the general said, "Go out and scout. Take a small party." Well, this Thomas Boyd took a larger party. His Indian guide told him not to go that direction. He went anyway. He pushed through against the advice of the guide, and guess what? They were tortured, tied to trees, and had their fingernails pulled out, and their skin cut, their intestines pulled out. So, because of his mistake, it was brutal and horrifying.
So he was begging you for the peace that he needed, so he didn't suffer anymore. He couldn't pass over.
I think so. I mean, looking back, I think so. At the time, I thought he was mean because when he showed himself with his stomach gashed open and his eye missing and things, I thought to myself, this thing's evil. It's harassing me. It's trying to make me scared of him. Looking back, the fact probably was he was trying to show me who he was or what happened to him.
Well, I know that through all the I've done a lot of research on this, and I've had some guests on here as well, and that's what I like is when you get the chance to find out what someone else has experienced and stuff, it all kind of fits together. But some spirits are here because they choose to be. They choose to come back and let you know that they're safe where they are, or just let you know that they're here. I lost my dad in October, and my dad doesn't show himself physically, only in my dreams. But that's how he communicates with me that he's okay. For some of these spirits like you're talking about, they're still stuck in exactly the events that were happening to them at that exact time, and they don't know how to get out and pass over. So I'm kind of curious if that's something that you never experienced before that, why this specific entity chose you.
Well, that's a good question, and because I was there, I think a lot about that. Sometimes bad things happen. People get cancer, or there's a car accident. People lose their job. They say, "Why me? Why me?" And so I was no different. I wondered, why on earth this thing picked me? Because there are people out there who go ghost hunting, who would love to see something and talk to something and prove it's there. And there I was saying, "No, thank you," and here it comes in like a big freight train. And so, in looking back, a few things could be possible, and I'm still learning myself. These years later, my friend Jeff thought at the time that I was sensitive. In fact, Lorraine Warren and Ed Warren. I don't know if you know who they are. They
Yes, I've
did
heard of them. Yep.
yeah, Amityville Horror and
Yep.
The Conjuring. They came to my college on January 30th, about 12 days before the haunting began. And Jeff wanted to go and see them talk. And I had no interest, but I went with him, because it was free and he was by himself. And while we were there, they began talking about these ghosts. I still didn't believe it. I thought it was just a nice show. But after the show was over, you can go up and meet them and shake their hands. So we're walking on this line up to the stage at Geneseo. And when I get on the stage, Lorraine stands up and looks at me and says, "I'm not going to shake your hand." And I looked around. Who's she talking to? At me. And she goes, "I don't want to know my future." And Ed stood up and pushed me away, and I had to leave the stage. So that was an interesting thing. I thought, like, what? And so Jeff thought maybe you have some kind of sensitivity, and so maybe she sensed something about that. When the priest came to bless the room, he said to me, "Well, God gives people different gifts. You can run fast, perhaps, sing a good song. You can dance well. You can write poetry. You have all different gifts. Maybe one of your gifts is the gift of spirit. And the parapsychologist told me, he did these tests on me. He said to me that I'm like a motel room with a vacancy sign to get ready because my whole life this is going to happen to me. And I don't want to hear that. So I think maybe because I was by where he was, because I had a sensitivity, and because my relatives found his body, made him known him, I think those three things made him say, you know what, let me take a risk and see if this guy can help me.
So to this day, does anybody complain of any kind of a haunting there in that room now?
Well, I can answer that in two ways. The first way is I can say, I don't think so. But the truth of the matter is, like I told you, for 25 years, I didn't go there. So 1,000 things could happen or nothing. However, when I went back 25 years later, there was a one young lady, and she had said to me that she'd heard the story of the ghost, of me and the ghost, and she asked for that particular room, and she wanted to see if she could summon the ghost to provoke it. And she was going to maybe yell at it, perhaps, or maybe be angry with it and challenge it, which I don't know if it's a good idea or not. But she
No, not
claimed
at
that once she
all.
did that, that things turned bad for her.
Yep.
That people got sick, that her boyfriend began to break up with her, that the rooms got cold. She stopped. So that's her testimony. I wasn't there. I can't say it's true or not true, but to her that was authentic. I can tell you that to the best of my ability, I tried to stop it. And at the end of the haunting, as far as I know, I tried to help this person, this soul, this thing to find rest.
Well, I do know that where we, in our realm of living, the afterworld lives amongst us as well. We have different paradigms where we're here, and then there's another layer around us, and I believe that there's someone who lives in the exact same space and occupies the exact same space we occupy. They're just in a separate dimension from us, so we can't see them. And for me, that's obviously there must have been something that this specific spirit latched onto you with. It's, to me, that's fascinating, and I'm very surprised that not many more people didn't come forward and with things that they went through with this same thing.
Well, at the time, a lot of people saw it. When I was in the college, my roommate Paul, who left the college, saw it, experienced it, and Linda and Beth and Jeff and Brian and Judy. I mean, it wasn't as though it was just me. In fact, the Democratic Chronicle, the DNC paper up there, sent interviewers down. I mean, it's a big deal because over a dozen people began to experience this in a very physical, very real way. And so, the parapsychologist wanted us to get pictures and ghost tapes and things like that. And here's the worst part for me. Everybody heard it call my name. They never heard it call their name, whether it was in my building, across the campus. People always heard this thing call my name, even not knowing who I was. And that was scary for me because it said one thing. It was focused. It was like focused just on me. And not knowing what to do about that for the longest time, it was a scary feeling.
Is it possible that maybe it was an ancestor of yours down the line?
Well, like I said, I know my ancestors for sure found his body. I knew my ancestors actually lived in the same area, were in the same platoon, so I'm sure they know him. So at the least, this person who we think it might have been was friends with or knew my relatives. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe they, he sensed, oh my gosh, this is the great, 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 great grandson or nephew of Adam, of Bernard, who I know. And maybe that connection he could sense that I couldn't was also a factor. And it's amazing, before he was killed, he was captured years earlier and he was marched through the streets of Montreal. Well, guess what? At the same age, I ran the Montreal Marathon in the same streets. So, I mean, there are so many, parallels looking back years later. And, I tell people who actively now research and ghost hunt, for lack of a better word, just be careful you don't try to understand things right away. It might take time. I lived with this thing for months. I thought about this thing for 30 years. And it's taken a long time for me to be able to honestly say, I now think I understand and know. And I always caution people, don't go into a building and say, Abraham Lincoln, there he is. Because you want to make sure you know who it really is. If it really is a soul of a person, maybe they can tell you something, a message for somebody. Maybe you can assist them in understanding. If you just assume it's Cleopatra every time, well, guess what? You're not really helping that person or yourself.
Absolutely. Have you ever had any other visitors, ghost wise, since then, since you got out of college there?
I can share two things with you right after the haunting within a few weeks. And remember, I wanted it to stop. I didn't want this. My family said, hey, let's go on vacation. We'd head down to Virginia Beach, Virginia. And there's a place called Williamsburg, which is a reconstructed colonial village. And at that time, President Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, the leaders of the G7 had met there and had this big conference. My mom said, you know what, just Chris, go over by that mantelpiece where the big meeting was. I'll take a picture over there. It'd be kind of cool. So I agreed to my mom. I love her. And so I stand there, and as I'm standing there, I hear this grandfather clock ring 3 times. Kind of like, bong, bong, bong. Then I hear someone scream, and I see a woman with long hair, a lady, run past me screaming. I'm like, what the heck was that? They take the picture, click, and I said, you heard that, right? You saw that? No one heard a thing. Well, back in those days, there's no digital cameras. You sent your film away to be developed, and you got back a few weeks later.
Yeah.
So weeks later, we got the film back, and there I am in the picture, looking nervous, trying to smile. You see 3 clocks in the air floating, all saying 3 o'clock, and the back of a woman's hair and dress running past me. And so that's when I think my family realized, okay, you know what, we'll take this seriously. We understand now what's going to happen to you. But on a very positive note, it started sadly. My grandfather passed away in 1998, and I was there as a pallbearer. And 3 days later, I'm in my bedroom. I wake up with a start, and I see him as a silhouette in the door frame. And I looked up, and I'm like, and having experienced this before, I said, you're dead, right, Grandpa? He said, yeah, I know that. I said, okay, I just want to make sure you understand that. Why are you here? And he said, I want you to find the gray box. What? I need you to find the gray box. It's important you find the gray box. So my wife had never seen anything before, so I figured I'd wake her up so she could see him, So I turned to wake her up, and she said, what? I'm like, wake up, what? She woke up, looked over, gone. I'm like, dang it. Well, the next morning, I called my mom. It was her father who passed away. I said, Mom, I don't mean to upset you, and I don't mean to make things, emotional for you, but I just saw Grandpa. And she said, what? I said, well, yeah, he was in the doorway, and he wants me to find some gray box. She had no clue. She called my uncle, who said, oh, yeah, he had a gray box years ago with, like, papers in it or something like that, some kind of papers. And so I'll see what I can do. So we went down to Florida, and they found in the back in the shed this gray box. And apparently there were very important papers in there for her to have to help her out once he was gone. And the most amazing thing was, my grandma told me later on that before he died, he was looking for something and said, I can't find what I'm looking for. She said, go to sleep, find it in the morning, and he never woke up. So this experience I had was positive. It went across generations, and it confirmed what was happening thousands of miles away with a conversation he had had. So for me, that was gratifying. That was a positive aspect to the paranormal.
Did you ever try to become like a medium for these people that need help or anything? Is that something that you were ever interested in afterwards?
It's an interesting thought, because I really believe there's a real way, a real honest way to help people who necessarily don't have the same developed skills or are afraid themselves. And I've seen mediums, clairvoyants, psychic seers, whatever you want to label them, pass on some really amazingly healing, thoughtful messages, from across the veil. For myself, I think that I was so traumatized by this thing whispering in my ear and following me around that I've always been a bit hesitant or gun shy to jump back into the communication in terms of trying to assist because what happened to me. And people tell me, and I don't know if it's true because I don't know, that I'm very sensitive and that it's ridiculous. And I remember I used to be able to go to any graveyard, and with my friends, and they'd say, okay, say something. And so I'd say, okay, there's a gentleman across the other side. His name is this. He was born then. He has a son. And I could tell them what the gravestone said across the whole cemetery, not by reading them, by listening to the voices. And I think because it was that powerful, I was afraid of being controlled or afraid of people needing me so much. I was afraid they might say, okay, then tell me what my grandma's doing. Tell me. I was afraid that I had to be performing like a circus freak. And so for that reason, I never really pursued that as a choice.
Do you to this day still, every now and then, do you still get these messages from the people that have passed?
Absolutely, absolutely, and and if I really think I can be a voice for healing and a voice for good, I will ask the person. I'll say, listen, if I happen to understand something about perhaps your aunt or about someone you care about that was not the normal thing, would you want to hear it? What do you mean? Let's. If I had a dream or if I understood something, do you want me to tell you what I understood? And if they say yes, I share it. If they say no, I just that's fine. I respect their choice. And so, I try to be cautious, especially now because I've been on TV now and there's movies about me and books about me. I tour across the country lecturing. People now think of me like an expert. I'm not, but I'm experienced. And so I have to be careful. If I say the wrong thing and someone gets hurt, I don't want that to have to happen. And I always caution people to, go slow and, keep an open mind and try to be positive. Don't go someplace and pee on the floor and set things on fire and curse. I tell them, pretend it's someone's house and you go in there and speak politely. And I even tell people, if you go to this old place, bring maybe a little can of paint or some polish or floor wax and clean part of the house, part of the structure. Because if they live there, they'll appreciate you fixing their home or doing something nice or putting like a doily out or a little, juice. And if they can see you care about where they live, they're more likely to reach out to you and to be positive than if you go in nasty, cursing, trying to make a name for yourself.
I believe that's very true. I can't help but to think that this whole thing, I wonder if perhaps this has something to do with you in a past life, why this specific, person latched onto you in the dorms. I'm wondering if maybe this is somebody you're connected to in a past life or something.
Well, since our understanding is this is a person who lived a couple hundred years ago, if there are past lives, if I did have a past life, then it's not impossible to speculate or think that that could be a possibility.
Well, I've had a lot of interviews and I have not any doubt at all now of past lives. It's stuff that I research myself. And through a lot of my research, the guests that I have on help me to research as well. And through the research I've done, I have no doubt we have all had past lives, and I've experienced a lot of things in my life that I cannot explain, why I know these things when they could, they were never a part of my life here. But all of a sudden they're a part of, why do I, why do I know these things? I'll run into a person that I've never met before, but I know them just as well as if I've known them my whole life. Or, they'll, certain things that they do, in their habitat and, their own traits, I recognize them. And I feel like, and I've gone to these psychics in my past and said, why am I recognizing these people? How do I know these people? And the answer's always been the same, because you were involved with them in a past life. And, that's why I can't help but to wonder if you're possibly, involved, whether it was family or friend or something in a past life with this person.
Well, you can even find commonality in very simple things. Let's say you go to a concert, like Phil Collins, for example. You go to a Phil Collins concert, like, hey, isn't that great? You can bond with someone and dance to the same music, So you can find bonds that last for a long time, not knowing anything about the person at all. And yet, because of a common interest or experience, that can bring you together and make you close. My friends and I, during this haunting, I haven't seen some of them face to face in 30 years. Yet, if I talk to them on the phone or if I, correspond with them, it's almost like no time has been lost because there's a connection that is stronger than just a normal connection by the events that happened. And I can tell you that I'm so excited because in October of this year, October 17th, the college is sponsoring a symposium, and they're bringing back almost everyone from the haunting 30 years ago to talk about these things. So, and they're going to have a ghost hunt. They're going to bring us back to the rooms where things happen. So, I feel really blessed that I've lived long enough and I've stayed open-minded enough to keep on this trail. And I think that come October, with the big crowd gathered there, that'll be a very nice, positive, meaningful event.
If you don't mind me asking, what sign are you?
I'm in Aries, but I believe I have a Pisces moon. I don't know what that means, but I know that's the case.
Well, with the Pisces moon, you're very intuitive. I'm a Pisces, and when Pisces involved, it's very intuitive. We're very open, channel wise, to this stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that this stuff, happens to you, because there are there's a few signs that are a lot more open
Right.
to this kind of stuff than others. I think we all have a different kind of gift that way. I think we all have that little bit of ability, but I think all of our gifts are different.
Right.
So, I think it's great, and you have such big opportunity here to maybe, help put some people at ease who have struggled so hard with a lost one, or perhaps there's something that they need you to find so that their loved ones can, be more comfortable in their afterlife, after they pass, the ones that they leave behind, just like your grandfather did. And I
Right.
think that's a gift for you. I think you know, that's amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. For someone like me, who for the longest time viewed this as a negative thing, it is nice to be able to have the opportunity to flip it and view it as a positive thing. It's a very nice thing. It's very healing.
Well, my daughter, I have a 20-year-old, and she has things happen to her as well. Most of the time, it's younger people, whether they're little kids or teenagers, but they're lost. They've either been murdered or have come to a violent death, and they don't know that they're dead, or they don't know how to get into the light or pass over. And she struggles with it because, there's times when she just wants to shut this off, and she just wants to have her own life back. And you have to learn, I think, that you can shut this off when you don't want this present in your life. But she seems to be able to help these, lost souls to try to, to get into the light and to find
Right.
their families.
Absolutely.
She had a little girl who she went downstairs, and she writes songs. That's what my 20-year-old does, and she's phenomenal at it. Well, she went downstairs to do something, and she had her songbook open of all her songs she wrote. Well, when she came back up, there was a paper laying on top of her songs, and that paper said "Help me," and it had the little girl's name on it. And immediately she knew, I have to research this little girl on the computer. I got to find out, is she in fact missing? Did they find her dead body? What happened to this little girl? And she got on there and she found out that this girl was still a missing persons. Well, the little girl in detail told her that she was in a well. And that's where her body, I'm in a well. It's dark in here. The different specific things that this little girl told her and stuff. The problem is having people in this world take you seriously, and having somebody actually listen to you and take the time to go search that place it's hard. When you have this kind of gift, it's hard for people to actually take you seriously, because the world doesn't want to believe that this stuff is real.
Yeah. I see that sometimes too. And so whenever I speak, I always tell people in the audience, I say, listen, it doesn't matter if you believe me or not in terms of can I prove that ghost to you? Because how do you prove love? I put a ring on your finger. Does it mean I love you? Maybe, maybe not. I can say it. Does that mean I love you? Maybe, maybe not. And in my experience, is if you feel loved, you probably are. So I say to them, I'm going to share with you my experience. And I want you to feel the emotions I had, see what I did, and this way the experience for you is real. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, or spirits, you understand what the impact that could have on somebody if they were there. And that puts down their defensive wall, like, oh, okay, okay. And then I find when I'm done speaking, they think, you know what? I'm gonna think about that. Maybe you're right. And so I try to use a common emotion, a common experience with people, so I don't have to force anything to them and say you must believe this. Rather, I put like my hand out basically in that way, and they reach out back, and I think that's a very healthy way to do it.
Absolutely. I think it's just incredible. And I think there's a lot more people out there who experience what you've experienced who are afraid to come forward with it.
Oh yes,
For the reason that this world does not want to face the facts that this stuff is real. I mean, it's much easier to hide in your own world where this, I don't ever want to see a ghost. I'm petrified. If I saw a ghost, what would I do?
yeah.
They're spirits and in the afterworld, they exist just as well or just the same as they did in life in the afterworld. And
Well, yeah.
sometimes,
We had ghost pictures, ghost tapes, priests, parapsychologists, 12 witnesses, and we still waited decades to understand and be brave enough to say it. So I can imagine there are a lot of people out there struggling with what to say, who to say it to, and fearing they might be judged in a negative way.
yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, I went into a house once and it was a friend of mine. And she asked me to come in there because the negativity in there was so bad that she couldn't. Her son and his girlfriend and their baby lived there. Well, her son had started out that, he was always a very easygoing, loving person. Well, since they were in there, he became, easily angered and started getting very agitated easily, angry, violent type of way where he just wasn't that way. So I said I'd go into the house and see what I felt. Well, let me tell you, walking one step into that house was a living hell. When I got in that house, I started to sweat. I started to shake. I could feel this pressure on me like an elephant sitting on top of me, and it was growing by the moment. And they had no backstory of this house. Well, I went in there without a backstory because I wanted to see what I felt without any knowledge of what had actually gone on in there. So I went in and I felt awful. I felt like I had the flu. I felt like I was going to die. I can't even explain it. I couldn't breathe. Well, the closer I got to the upstairs, the worse it felt. And every step I took up those stairs, my feet were actually sinking into the stairs, it felt like. And when I got to this door at the top of the steps, I said, "This is where he did it." And she stopped and looked at me and she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "This is where he killed all those kids." Well, I knew nothing about this place, but
Right.
this stuff was just pouring in like nothing I'd ever felt before. And I said to her, "I have to get out of here because he doesn't want me here." I said, "He wants to harm me and I got to get out of here." And she said, "Sue, you have to do something about this." She said, "This is my family." And I said, "I have to get out of here right now because this is my health at risk." I said, "I don't think your family is as much at risk when they're by living here as I am by being here."
Right, because affecting you so greatly.
Well, yeah, whatever this was knew I was on to him and wanted me just to get as far away as I could. Well, I stepped into the room and all of a sudden I could just see these children just screaming and suffering. Well, I got out of there. I told her I have to go. I said, "I'll come back when I have the
Right.
stuff that I need. I want to come back with Sage. I want to come back. I want to be able to, say a prayer in this house, see if I can get this evil thing to pass over." Well, he lived in that house. When I got home, I researched this house. I said,
Right.
"Okay, I got to figure this out." Well, I found out who it was and that he was the authorities were pretty sure it was him, but could never prove that he was somebody who was abducting children at it, way back, like 100 or 200 years ago. The authorities had thought that he was doing this, but couldn't prove it because his wife had killed him and then she had killed herself.
Gee.
So I mean, there was never any proof. So to this day, it was an open thing where they actually believed that they had the person that did it, but didn't have the chance to prove it and take him into custody. Well, I was in that house, and what I read, I have no doubt that what I read and what I experienced was all the same. And this
Right.
guy has no intentions of leaving that house. He lives there. It's his house. That's the problem is some of these negative, evil spirits, they choose. And he's choosing that he's not leaving there and nobody can make him leave. I mean, through the power of Jesus Christ, might be able to drive him out of there. And I think that power is strong enough, but there is nothing within myself that I could possibly do to get him to leave, because I fear that if I did go in there and actually tried to do a total cleansing, I don't know if I would have made it out there alive.
Well, it raises an interesting question, I think, because I think most of us believe that we have a degree of free will. In fact, Christianity teaches you that, you have free will. This way you can do good or bad. You can choose and you can earn grace. You can earn heaven in a sense. So when you talk about spirits, whatever we're going to call them, spirits, the undead, ghosts, whatever, souls, they too might have the capacity to choose. And just like in life, in our physical life, if we ask for help, it's usually there. We can also not reach out. We might benefit or suffer by being by ourselves. And so I also wonder about that too. I mean, is there a time or a place when a person shouldn't try to have someone cross over? If that spirit isn't ready yet, if they're still trying to learn something or achieve some kind of goal. And so I think the noble goal is to try to assist and help and put that spirit at rest or help in that process. But I think also we have to think about maybe it's not the right time. And I think, if you look at things in a very serious way, it's good to question about what we're doing because we learn that way ourselves.
That's very true. I mean, I wish her luck, and she's got to get somebody in there who has the experience, or who can do this the right way. I have kids, and I don't want to risk my life
No.
or anything else, but he made it apparently clear that I wasn't wanted there, and he also made it apparently clear that he wasn't leaving.
You know what? If I were in that area, or if I was asked to help, what I would suggest is that the folks in the house begin to write down specifics like dates and times or temperatures to see if there's a pattern. I mean, is this spirit most active on a Thursday, or is it most active at 4 o'clock in the morning, and maybe through recording data, you may be able to find out the times it's most active, or maybe find some kind of connection to a past action or event and as to why they're still there. And so maybe that would be something to think about.
Well, from what I got from him, it's his house, and he doesn't have to leave. And, nobody else belongs in his house. That was his house since it was built, and that is going to be his house till the end of time, and he's not leaving. And the research I've done, I've heard other people talk of the same thing, where people just get stuck, and, especially evil gets glued to where it is, and it has no intentions whatsoever to leaving. It doesn't hurt her family. It just the negative energy in there sticks so bad that anything negative energy stays where it's at. And that's
I just get worried because just like ourselves with a physical form, as we get older, and you're probably more than 30, our body ages. And that just happens, and we're not always as strong as we were fast as when we were 20 years old. That's just a natural process. And as we age physically, though, we learn more. We're wiser, we're smarter, more experienced. But even I think if you look at what spiritual energy is, it still is some type of energy. And it's not destroyed, but it can be shifted. It can be shared, be moved. And I think every system eventually loses some gusto, some power. And I've seen some ghosts fade, where they begin to lose some of their ability to communicate or become recordings and things. So even if he's right, that's his house, he wants to stay there, he still has to get energy from someplace, whether it's the people in the house or something in the house. But no system is foolproof. So over time, I worry that he's going to begin to lose the ability to make a choice. And that's where I think you have that gray line where you say, okay, listen, we got to go in there and help him out or not. And I think it's fascinating.
I think that, I told her that it's just a fear. I don't want to get hurt. But if I had somebody who is more experienced in this, who has done this before, it's easy to cleanse an area that's not overwhelmingly violent. That's not a hard thing. But when it's violent like this, and it, this thing knew that, or this man knew that I'm very sensitive to this stuff, but he knew that I could feel his presence like tenfold. He knew. Right. And I think that that because I knew, and maybe I did have the ability to at least cast him out of there in the name of Jesus Christ. I think that that was his way of, holding me back, is filling me with fear and filling me with that, overwhelming feeling. But if I could find somebody around here that was experienced in this, I would go back in there and I would, assist them in getting rid of this, for the fact that this is, to me, just being in there, this is a dangerous situation.
Yeah, and I think you make a valid point because there's that old adage. It's a red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. In other words, you can fish, but you should fish in calm waters, not in rough waters, because the danger. And I think that as an experienced person like you are, you're recognizing this isn't standard, and to go in there is increased risk.
Yeah, definitely. This was phenomenal. I'm so glad that and thankful that you came on here to share your story with us. I
Thank you.
think this is great. And I think sometimes I think that we're given these gifts for a reason. And I think that you have an amazing gift. And I know that it was a negative thing for you at first, but I think you have an amazing gift and that you could help so many people, whether it be, like I said, to, like your grandfather, to find that gray box,
Right.
or, just to get these people who are so lonely and so scared, just to get them to see the light and cross over so that they're not here suffering anymore. And I think that is phenomenal.
Well, I hope you're right, and I'm gonna try to keep a positive spin on what happened to me and reach out to people and try to share my experience, and I'm gonna let them know what I learned most from this haunting was to appreciate what you have. Even when people in your lives get annoying to you, eventually they go too. And so while you're here, enjoy the food, enjoy the music, give people hugs, laugh sometimes, because nothing is promised us beyond what our faith dictates. And so I tell people, please enjoy what you have.
You're absolutely right. You know, my motto is the people that I I don't care for in my life. You don't need to bring them harm. For me, it's you just close that door. You don't need to say anything to them if you have nothing nice to say. But the people you love, you grab onto and you show them how much you love them while you have them.
I can say one word to that, and that's amen.
Absolutely. Well, I am so thankful and grateful that decided to come on the show. And I want to thank you so much for taking your time to be with us and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
And I really hope, as things progress in your life and stuff, I would like to have you back on again, and share with us some more things that you encounter in your future.
Certainly. You invite me on, I'll be there.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye. That was a phenomenal interview, and that was a lot of fun. And you know what? That's the kind of stuff that I absolutely love, is to get these people's the one-on-one experience that they've actually lived through, and they can share with us. Those are the proofs in this world that we're not alone and that we are surrounded by the afterlife. Sometimes the afterlife is not so positive. Sometimes it's very negative, but it's definite proof that we're surrounded by the afterlife. And, to close our mind off to this, there's a lot of people who are very skeptical, and that's okay. We're all our own people, and we all make our own choices when it comes to skepticism and what we believe. But if that does visit you, and you have these experiences, maybe that's a gift for you to help these people pass over. And I just don't think that we should ignore our gifts. We should embrace them. That was phenomenal. I want to thank him so much for being on here. Well, that's all we have time for today. We post all our shows on YouTube. And if you want to know more about our guests and upcoming shows, please visit our info2rail website. Just Google info2rail. Click on our Google Sites page. From there, you can go right to our YouTube page. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, so much for joining us here at info2rail. You guys between you guys and the guests, you are what makes this possible. To be able to bring you guys these people's experiences and grow from them. This is what I love to do, and I want to thank you so much for standing behind me in this and joining us here. I hope to see you here each and every week. There's so many amazing guests coming up, and so many amazing things to learn and to experience. May God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.